The first thing I heard was my daughter's voice, calm, deadly calm, telling someone, "Sir, you better lower that weapon right now." My heart froze, adrenaline flooding my veins instantly. I sprinted toward the driveway, gravel crunching beneath my boots, panic surging through me. When I reached the edge of my property, the scene nearly stopped my heart. A guy dressed in a tacky black uniform, labeled HOA Security, stood aggressively, legs spread wide, waving a pistol in my daughter's direction. He held it sideways, like he'd watched too many action movies. In front of him stood my daughter Jenna, arms raised slightly, palms open, completely calm, her eyes never leaving the barrel aimed at her chest. "You're trespassing," the man shouted, his voice shaking with misplaced authority. "This is HOA protected property. You need identification immediately or I'll detain you." I recognized him. Kyle Benson, the arrogant HOA security chief who patrolled the neighborhood like he owned it. He was known for harassing neighbors over petty rules, but this had escalated far beyond any minor infraction. My daughter didn't flinch, she took a slow step forward, voice measured and cool. "I live here, you've got 2 seconds to lower that weapon." Kyle hesitated, his eyes flickering uncertainly. I said identification. I watched Jenna carefully. She was sizing him up, her stance subtly shifting. I'd seen that posture before many times. This wasn't fear, it was preparation. Kyle didn't know it yet, but he'd just pointed a weapon at a Navy SEAL instructor, a woman who regularly trained America's most elite warriors. "Lower the gun, Kyle," I shouted, stepping closer, anger boiling in my chest. "This is my daughter." Kyle turned slightly toward me, gun still pointed at Jenna, confusion crossing his face. She was acting suspicious, jogging near restricted areas. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Restricted? This is our driveway." She was out for a run. Kyle ignored me, refocusing on Jenna. "Identification now or I'll cuff you." I almost laughed. This guy in his shiny fake badge and tactical vest thought he was in control. He had no clue the danger he was actually in. Jenna calmly tilted her head, studying him like an insect pinned to a board. "Last chance. Put that weapon away, or you're about to learn a hard lesson." Kyle sneered arrogantly, shaking his head. "I don't take orders from," he never finished his sentence. One blink, and Jenna moved faster than I could track. She lunged forward, her hand snapping upward with lightning speed. In an instant, Kyle's pistol flew out of his grip, clattering uselessly onto the driveway. Before he could react, Jenna swept his legs from beneath him, sending him sprawling face first into the dirt. His arms were pinned tightly behind his back, before he even knew what hit him. She leaned close, her voice dangerously quiet, audible only to us. "Threaten me again, and you'll regret every life choice you ever made." Kyle whimpered slightly, unable to move beneath her iron grip. Neighbors had started gathering, drawn by the commotion. I saw Carol, our elderly neighbor, with her mouth hanging open in shock, clutching her terrier tightly. Another man nearby pulled out a phone, filming the whole thing. Minutes later, flashing lights arrived. 2 sheriff's cruisers skidded to a halt, officers jumping out swiftly. Jenna released Kyle slowly, stepping back, hands still clearly visible. Kyle staggered up, sputtering angrily, pointing wildly. "She assaulted me. Arrest her immediately." One officer calmly approached Jenna, sizing her up cautiously. "Ma'am, care to explain?" Jenna reached slowly into her pocket, pulling out her Navy identification. The officer's eyes widened as he read it. He glanced at Kyle, clearly unimpressed, and then back to Jenna. "You're good, ma'am," he said respectfully, handing her ID back. Kyle's eyes nearly popped out of his head. "You're letting her go," she attacked an HOA officer. The deputy turned sharply, silencing Kyle with a glare. "You're lucky she didn't do worse. You pointed a weapon at a highly trained military officer on her own property. You're the one who should worry about charges." Kyle went pale, stammering helplessly as neighbors watched with growing satisfaction. By now Barbara King, the HOA president, a woman who loved power and hated anyone challenging her rules, had arrived, striding furiously up the driveway. "What is happening here?" she demanded. Kyle rushed toward her, babbling, "Barbara, she assaulted me. I was enforcing HOA rules." Barbara silenced him with a harsh wave, her eyes fixed on Jenna and me. "Your daughter endangered this community. We'll handle this with severe consequences." Jenna didn't say a word, just held Barbara's gaze evenly, totally unbothered. I stepped forward protectively. Your man pointed a gun at my daughter. The HOA crossed a line today. Barbara raised her chin defiantly, voice dripping with arrogance. Then you'll both suffer the consequences. She turned sharply, marching away with Kyle trailing behind like a wounded puppy. Neighbors whispered furiously, eyeing Jenna with newfound respect and curiosity. As everyone slowly dispersed, Jenna finally relaxed, exhaling softly. I squeezed her shoulder gently. You okay? She nodded, a faint smile appearing. He had no idea what he was doing. I shook my head, anger still simmering. They messed with the wrong family this time. Jenna glanced up at me, calm determination in her eyes. Don't worry, Dad. I know exactly how to handle bullies. I believed her completely. Kyle and Barbara had made a terrible mistake today. They'd threatened my family, pointed a gun at my daughter, and arrogantly assumed they could intimidate us into submission. But what they didn't know, what they'd soon realize, was they'd just challenged someone who trained Navy SEALs to face threats far scarier than an HOA bully. They'd started a fight they couldn't win, and Jenna wasn't about to back down. Neither was I. This wasn't over, it was just getting started. The morning after the confrontation, I walked to the mailbox expecting trouble. Sure enough, stuffed in with the bills, was a thick envelope bearing the dreaded Cedar Grove HOA logo. Opening it, I felt my jaw clench with fury. The HOA had sent an official notice claiming Jenna was guilty of assaulting an HOA security officer and imposed an immediate $5,000 fine. If we refused payment, they threatened legal action to seize our property. Barbara King's signature at the bottom was bold and arrogant, a challenge she expected me to back down from. But Barbara had miscalculated badly. I carried the letter to the kitchen where Jenna sat calmly sipping coffee. She took the envelope, scanned it briefly, and smirked. $5,000, she chuckled, shaking her head. They're actually trying this. Barbara's flexing her muscles. I sighed. She thinks intimidation works. Jenna leaned back, eyes thoughtful. Then let's show her how wrong she is. Over the next few days, Barbara's campaign of harassment escalated sharply. HOA security patrols circled our house constantly, slowing down to glare menacingly. Kyle Benson, his pride wounded after Jenna effortlessly disarmed him, made a point of stopping by daily, snapping photos, scribbling notes, and even aiming a speed radar at Jenna when she jogged. Neighbors became wary, worried they might face retaliation for associating with us. Late one evening, Jenna was out on a run when Kyle pulled up alongside her in his patrol car, lights flashing obnoxiously. He rolled down his window, his voice dripping with contempt. You might have tricked the cops, but you're finished here, he sneered. Better pack your bags before Barbara kicks you out. Jenna paused, breathing evenly. She stared Kyle down, completely unfazed. Careful, Kyle, threatening a naval officer doesn't end well. He laughed bitterly, revving his engine. We'll see about that. The threats didn't stop there. Barbara King hosted an emergency HOA meeting, publicly branding us as dangerous outsiders. She spun wild accusations, describing Jenna as a violent intruder endangering the neighborhood. She even claimed Jenna was dishonorably discharged from the Navy, a blatant lie that quickly spread, poisoning public opinion. The situation grew more toxic daily. Angry neighbors scowled from their lawns, believing Barbara's lies. Our trash cans were mysteriously knocked over, and Jenna's car tires were slashed. The message was clear. Barbara intended to drive us out by force, but Jenna remained completely calm. She quietly collected evidence, installing discreet cameras around the property. Each harassment attempt by the HOA was carefully recorded, photos, videos, timestamps. Jenna had trained SEALs to handle far worse. An HOA campaign didn't faze her one bit. One afternoon, Carol, our elderly neighbor, approached hesitantly as Jenna repaired a tire. I'm sorry this is happening, Carol whispered. Barbara told everyone you attacked Kyle unprovoked. But I saw everything. You were protecting yourself. Jenna smiled warmly, squeezing Carol's hand gently. Thank you. Don't worry, Carol. They'll regret this soon enough. A few neighbors secretly supported us, tired of Barbara's bullying tactics, but afraid to speak out. Jenna encouraged them quietly, reassuring them we'd handle Barbara ourselves. One evening, Marcus Adams, the HOA vice president, knocked nervously on our door. Barbara's out of control, he admitted quietly. She doctored evidence, claiming Jenna attacked Kyle first. But Kyle's body cam footage clearly shows he drew the gun unprovoked. Barbara buried it. You need this. He handed Jenna a flash drive containing Kyle's entire body cam recording. Jenna smiled grimly, thanking him calmly. With this footage, Barbara's lies would collapse. The next morning, we found yet another threatening letter in the mailbox. Barbara now demanded $10,000 in fines, claiming persistent aggression. Jenna simply shook her head, almost amused. She's about to regret everything. Without hesitating, Jenna called in a favor. A good friend from her military days, now working high-level Navy legal affairs, reviewed our evidence carefully. When he saw Kyle's video, he let out a low whistle. They've dug themselves a massive hole, he said seriously. This isn't just harassment, it's criminal. Days later, Jenna invited the entire neighborhood to a public HOA meeting, promising everyone would learn the truth. Curious residents filled the clubhouse, whispering nervously. Barbara strutted in arrogantly, confident as ever. She took her place behind the podium, glaring smugly at Jenna. This meeting addresses the ongoing threat posed by a violent resident, Barbara announced coldly, pointing directly at Jenna. Her actions endanger everyone's safety. Enough, Jenna interrupted calmly, standing and holding up the flash drive. You've lied to these people long enough. Barbara froze, her face turning pale. You have no right. Jenna ignored her, plugging the flash drive into the projector. Kyle's unedited body cam footage immediately appeared on the large screen, crystal clear and undeniable. Gasps filled the room, as everyone watched Kyle aggressively pointing his pistol at Jenna, clearly threatening her without provocation. Jenna spoke quietly, addressing the shocked crowd. Barbara King falsely accused me. She lied, destroyed evidence, and defamed my character. Kyle Benson threatened my life. This is the real truth. The clubhouse exploded in furious shouts. Barbara stood rigid, eyes darting desperately. This video is fabricated, she stammered, but nobody believed her. Neighbors surrounded Jenna, apologizing deeply. Carol squeezed Jenna's hand gratefully. Marcus publicly resigned from the HOA board, denouncing Barbara's actions. Kyle stood silently in the corner, head bowed, defeated. Barbara fled quickly, avoiding reporters waiting outside. Within days, her entire empire collapsed. The HOA board unanimously removed her as president, promising reforms. Kyle faced criminal charges for unlawful threats, and Barbara was investigated for fraud and obstruction of justice. Standing together on our porch later, Jenna sighed peacefully. Bullies never expect someone to fight back. They prey on fear. Once you show them strength, they crumble. I smiled proudly, putting my arm around her shoulder. Barbara picked the wrong woman to mess with. Jenna laughed softly, nodding. She sure did. We'd faced down the worst Barbara and Kyle could throw at us. Lies, threats, harassment. But Jenna stood firm, quietly dismantling their entire scheme with dignity and courage. The HOA had underestimated Jenna terribly, assuming she'd easily surrender. But Jenna trained Navy SEALs to conquer impossible odds. She'd never backed down from a fight. Barbara and Kyle had learned a hard lesson: never threaten a Navy SEAL trainer and her family. Jenna wasn't someone you could bully. A week after Barbara King's dramatic downfall, life in Cedar Grove began returning to normal, or at least a new, better normal. With Barbara ousted and Kyle Benson facing charges, neighbors felt safe again. Jenna and I finally had peace at our home, free from harassment, lies, and threats. But the story wasn't finished yet. Barbara's removal uncovered a swamp of corruption inside the HOA. Investigators found she'd used neighborhood funds to buy expensive vacations, luxury dinners, and even finance personal loans. It was a mess, and residents demanded answers. One sunny afternoon, Jenna and I were working in the garden when Marcus Adams walked up our driveway, a serious look on his face. "The HOA board wants to meet with you," he said cautiously. "People are still shaken by what happened, and they trust you. Would you both be willing to talk?" Jenna glanced at me, her expression thoughtful. "It's probably time we clear the air completely." The clubhouse was packed when we arrived. Residents stood chatting nervously. Marcus guided us towards seats at the front. As we sat, the room quieted. All eyes fixed on Jenna, respect evident in their gazes. These same neighbors who'd once feared Barbara now admired Jenna deeply for standing strong. Marcus stood up first, speaking clearly. We've invited Jenna and her father here today to formally apologize for the harm done to them by Barbara King and Kyle Benson. Our community failed them, and failed each of you. He turned, looking directly at Jenna. On behalf of everyone, we're deeply sorry. You deserve our gratitude and respect, not the treatment you received. The room erupted in sincere applause. Jenna smiled warmly, standing briefly to acknowledge them. The gratitude felt genuine, healing some of the hurt we'd endured. Afterward, neighbors approached Jenna individually, shaking her hand, apologizing quietly. Many thanked her for having the courage they hadn't. Carol hugged Jenna tightly, tears welling. You brought back our neighborhood, Carol whispered gratefully. You stood up to Barbara when no one else could. Even those who'd previously sided with Barbara stepped forward nervously, offering apologies. Jenna graciously accepted, reassuring everyone she held no grudges. Later that week, Marcus approached Jenna again with an unusual request. The HOA board wants you to join us as president, he explained carefully. We need someone trustworthy, fair, and strong. After everything, you're the obvious choice. Jenna looked surprised, glancing at me uncertainly. I train Navy SEALs. Marcus, not exactly HOA material. Marcus smiled sincerely. That's exactly why we need you. Someone who understands real leadership, fairness, and respect. After thinking it over, Jenna agreed, but on her terms. At the next HOA meeting, standing confidently before neighbors who'd gathered eagerly, Jenna calmly explained her conditions. No more security patrols, fake police tactics, or power trips, Jenna stated clearly. The HOA's job is simple: protect and support residents, not harass or intimidate them. Neighbors nodded enthusiastically, relieved to hear a sensible, respectful approach. And Jenna added firmly, every penny misused by Barbara King will be repaid to homeowners. Full transparency from now on, no exceptions. Everyone applauded loudly, eager for honesty and change. Jenna's first actions were swift and decisive. She abolished ridiculous HOA fines, restored community trust, and ensured residents were no longer treated like criminals. The HOA became genuinely helpful again, not a source of fear or stress. Even Kyle Benson, whose court case ended in probation, came to our doorstep months later, humbled and embarrassed. I messed up badly, he admitted awkwardly, avoiding Jenna's steady gaze. I believed Barbara's lies, got carried away. I'm sorry, Jenna nodded evenly. Make it right by treating people with respect from now on. Kyle agreed quietly, and surprisingly kept his word, becoming a decent, respectful neighbor, humbled by his past mistakes. Months passed peacefully, our community thriving under Jenna's calm, firm leadership. She still trained SEALs regularly, but dedicated her free time to ensuring Cedar Grove remained a safe, welcoming neighborhood. Residents flourished, freed from fear and bullying. One afternoon, as Jenna and I sat relaxing on our porch, watching kids playing freely in the street, Carol stopped by again, smiling warmly. I never thought I'd see Cedar Grove this peaceful, Carol said gently. All because of you, Jenna. Jenna shook her head modestly. It wasn't just me. Everyone chose courage over fear. That's what matters. Carol smiled knowingly. We needed someone brave enough to lead. That's always been you. After Carol left, I turned to Jenna, smiling proudly. Your grandfather would have been so proud, kiddo. He always said real strength is quiet, respectful, and fair. Jenna smiled softly, eyes thoughtful. The Navy taught me strength, but you and Grandpa taught me integrity. That's the lesson Barbara never learned. We sat in comfortable silence, savoring the calm Jenna had restored. Barbara King's threats and lies had tried to destroy our home, our community, even our family's safety. But Jenna stood firm, turning their arrogance back on them without anger or vengeance, just steady courage. Years later, when new families moved into Cedar Grove, neighbors told them Jenna's story as a cautionary tale, and a testament to courage. Her quiet bravery became legendary, reminding everyone bullies only hold power if allowed. Our neighborhood never forgot how Jenna, a Navy SEAL trainer, calmly faced down the HOA's worst threats and won. As evening settled gently over Cedar Grove, kids laughing under streetlights, neighbors chatting comfortably from porch to porch, I felt immense pride. Jenna had faced Barbara's bullying without fear, teaching our community a powerful lesson. No one can take your dignity or freedom, unless you surrender it. Barbara had gambled on intimidation and lost everything. Jenna stood confidently, dignity intact, proving courage always triumphs over bullying. That quiet strength reshaped our neighborhood forever. And as the sun set peacefully over Cedar Grove, our neighborhood finally free, I knew Jenna's courage had taught everyone something lasting. Bullies may threaten, but courage always wins.